What does it feel like when you really, really want something? You think about it all the time. Maybe you save up every penny you can earn. Or you beg your parents, please, 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 I'll never ask for anything ever again. Whether it's a toy or a game or a pair of shoes or even some kind of lesson, it feels like everything will be perfect if only you can have it. And sometimes finally, you get it! Yeah! At first, it's great. Everything you hoped for. But then that new toy or game or pair of shoes or an experience, it starts to get old. It's less exciting. Maybe even it breaks. Now you're bored. You want something else new. And it happens over and over and over again. But here's the amazing thing. God's given you a superpower to defeat the cycle. Instead of always focusing on something new, something you don't have, fix your eyes on what you do have. Ask God to help you see the value and fun in whatever it is you have now. That vintage game, that pair of kicks with serious character, that you've got time to kick the soccer ball around with your mom or dad, even if you can't be on that expensive traveling team. Choosing contentment doesn't mean you can never have new things or exciting experiences, but it does mean you can find things to love in your life right now as it is. And when you do that, others can see God at work in you. That's why choosing contentment is an amazing way to worship God with your life. Because worship is about more than just singing loud. It's all about living loud.
Gotta know you're everything I need. You are the reason why my heart is beating. God, you're always taking care of me. I wanna follow where you are leading. Ooh, I don't wanna miss out on the good right now. Ooh, and everything I see, you're good, so good to me. I have decided I will depend on you no matter what. That's what I choose. I have decided I will depend on you no matter what. That's what I choose. That's what I choose. I am content in you. Thank you for all that you've given me. You are generous and good forever. Help me share the love you're showing me. I want everyone to know you better. Ooh, I don't wanna miss out on the good right now. Ooh, and everything I see, you're good, so good to me. I have decided I will depend on you no matter what. That's what I choose. I have decided I will depend on you no matter what. That's what I choose. That's what I choose. I am content in you. That's what I choose. I am content in you.
Oh, hi. Hey everybody, I'm Erica, and this is a bicycle! Obviously. This bike has seen better days. The paint's chipped, the gears are rusty, and the handlebars squeak whenever you turn them. If you had a bike that looked like this one, you'd probably be a little disappointed. Maybe even a little sad. You'd probably think it was time to get a new bike. But maybe you need to think again. Oh, sorry. Let me explain what I mean. It all starts with contentment. Contentment is learning to be okay with what you have. That means you don't have to be sad about your old bike. You just have to look at your old bike in a new way. You gotta see the potential. Just look. Can you see it? All she needs is a little air in the tires, oil in the gears, and some flash. I don't have to buy a new bike when I've already got everything I need to make this bike feel like new. And that, my friends, is what I call upcycling. Let's do this. Now that's a bike I can be content with. And as you'll learn in today's story, contentment doesn't only work with bicycles, it works with anything. Hear that? Yeah, me neither. I'll see you in a bit.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story inspired by the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verses 11 through 13.
We live in a time where it's really easy to communicate. In 2 seconds, I can send a text to a friend in another state or hop on a FaceTime call with my dear auntie on the other side of the world. But when the Apostle Paul was planting brand new churches, it was not a simple matter for him to stay in touch with the new believers in places he had traveled. Every letter had to be carefully handwritten and then hand-delivered. Plus, travel was often difficult and dangerous. It would take weeks, if not months, for a letter to even arrive. So whenever Paul wrote a letter, he chose the very most important things to say. Every word mattered, including these verses he wrote to the believers at the church in Philippi.
I have learned to be content no matter what happens to me. I know what it's like not to have what I need. I also know what it's like to have more than I need. I have learned the secret of being content no matter what happens. I am content whether I'm well-fed or hungry. I'm content whether I have more than enough or not enough. I can do all this by the power of Christ. He gives me strength.
See, Paul wanted the Philippians and us to understand that God can help us be okay in any situation, no matter what we face. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, that's easy for Paul to say. And that was true. To start off, he was a well-to-do, well-known, respected religious leader with a lot of power. But when Paul met Jesus,
"Why are you opposing me?"
Who are you, Lord?
everything changed. Paul's new outspoken beliefs upset both the Jewish leaders who had been his friends and the Greek and Roman leaders who were afraid Paul would cause trouble. Paul himself recorded some of the crazy situations he experienced during his travels. In a letter to the Corinthians, he explained,
I have been in prison. I have suffered terrible beatings. Again and again, I almost died. 3 times, I was shipwrecked. I have been in danger from rivers and robbers. I have been in danger from my fellow Jews and in danger from Gentiles. I have been in danger in the city, in the country, and at sea. I have been in danger from people who pretended they were believers. Often I have gone without sleep. I have been hungry and thirsty.
Now, Paul truly understood what it was like to face difficult situations of every kind. In fact, when he wrote his words to the Philippians about contentment, he was under arrest and couldn't even leave the house. Now, your story is different from Paul's. If you were to tell a trusted friend what you were going through, it might sound something like this.
I've had to wear my same sneakers, even when my friend got a new pair.
I've had to live one place during the week and another on the weekend.
I've had to settle for a movie night even though I wanted a sleepover instead.
I've had to live with a cast on my arm for 2 months.
I've had to sit alone at the lunch table.
I've had to miss summer camp because Dad took a job that didn't pay as much.
I've had to eat meatloaf at home when I wanted to eat out.
God knows your story. He knows all the ups and downs you face. He knows what you have and what you don't have. But no matter what happens, God loves you. He's given his only son, Jesus, to make a way to live with him forever. He's provided everything you need to choose contentment. As Paul reminds us, I have learned to be content no matter what happens to me. I am content whether I have more than enough or not enough. I can do all this by the power of Christ. He gives me strength.
The Apostle Paul went through a lot in his life. He'd been hungry, he'd been in trouble, he'd been in prison, but somehow through it all, he knew how to be content. How could he do that? How do we do that? Well, we can find out in the letter he wrote to the Philippians. 2 things. First, Paul wrote, "I have learned to be content no matter what happens to me." The key word there is learned. Paul had to learn to be content, and so do we. Just like we learn what 2 + 2 is and how many continents there are. 7, 6, 5. Sometimes learning contentment will come easy, but sometimes learning contentment takes time. You'll learn over time how to adjust your attitude and be okay when you don't have everything you want, and when things don't go your way. The second thing Paul wrote that will help you be content is this: I can do all this by the power of Christ. He gives me strength. When you put your trust in Jesus, you can rely on him and the Holy Spirit to give you strength when you're not feeling content about something. And that's true if you didn't get what you asked for on your birthday. It's true if you didn't get the part you wanted in the school play or the position you wanted on the football team. And it's true with bicycles! Here's the one thing to remember today. God can help you be content. When you feel sad or disappointed because something doesn't go the way you expect, talk to God about it. Ask him to help you see your situation in a new way. Could be there's more potential there than you think. I think I'll try out my new and improved bike now. I know, it's going to ride great. But even if it doesn't, I'm going to try and be content. See you next time.
I want to be rich. I want to be cool.
I want to be pretty.
I want to be successful.
I want to be cool. I want to be powerful.
I want to be rich.
I want to be popular.
I want to be clever.
I want to be successful.
I want to be pure.
I want to be heartbroken.
I want to be merciful.
I want to be humble.
I want to be hungry.
I want to be gentle.
I want to be a peacemaker.
I want to be persecuted.
Just be.
Hey, what is up? My name is Jordan, and I'm excited to dive back into this idea of bittersweet with you that we just started diving into. And it's this idea that when someone hurts us or wrongs us, sometimes it feels really sweet to hold on to the bitterness that we have against them. We said that as good as that might feel at a time, there is a better way. And that actually the sweetest thing is to let go of the bitterness, to learn to take the things that are done to us and make something better come out of them.
But of course, as you know and I know, that is way easier said than done. We could talk all day long about how good the idea of forgiveness sounds, but when it comes to actually doing it, that is a whole nother story. I mean, seriously, think of the last time someone did something that hurt you, or when something happened to you that you thought was unfair. Maybe it was something simple like your little brother finished the last of the salt and vinegar potato chips, even though you loved them and he knew that you loved them and he finished them off anyway. Or maybe it was when your friend thought they were texting someone else, but they were actually texting about you to somebody else, and the stuff that they said was kind of offensive. Or maybe you've had it where your stepmom grounded you for breaking curfew, but let your stepsister off with a pass. We have all been there. And for some of us, the experience of being let down or letting ourselves down is super fresh. You're like, that happened last week, or that's happening to me right now, or that happened to me an hour ago. Or maybe it's a little bit further back, but we all have these times in our life when we've been let down. And when we are let down or hurt by someone else or ourselves, we have this tendency to react in a number of different ways, right? We get frustrated, or we get angry, or we get distant and distance ourselves from the people we're frustrated and angry with. Or maybe you try and get even to level the playing field. I've been hurt, so now I need to hurt somebody else. We all have our own reactions, and no matter how we react, the truth is the same. Because of the unfairness or the hurt, a relationship with somebody is broken, damaged, not right in some way, and everything we do from then on becomes a reaction to that. We find these small ways to be dismissive or rude to them, saying things like, you do you, or telling people that person is canceled, or setting out to get revenge however we can. And in a lot of ways, our reaction feels justified because we feel like they were wrong to do what they did. And we must be right to be as upset as we are. It only makes sense. It is only just, right? But that idea leaves us with a question. Where do we go from here? If they were wrong and we were right, does that mean we are now justified with how we treat them, no matter how bad that might be? Does that mean that we are off the hook and won't be held responsible for how we handle our relationship with them from now on because they let us down? Does it mean we get a pass for some of our hateful behavior because of what they did to us? I mean, not being mad or not being frustrated or creating distance almost seems like you're saying that what was done to you is okay, right? And the last thing you want to do is send a message that you are okay with how you were treated, or that that person can keep on mistreating you because it wasn't that big of a deal. In situations like this, the idea of forgiveness seems like weak and irresponsible and completely unfair. And to further justify the response to being treated poorly, we think things like, well, aren't I supposed to be more like Jesus? And wasn't Jesus the one who was flipping tables in the temple when people got it wrong? I want to be like table flipping Jesus when I'm angry. I get it. Forgiveness sometimes can feel like a cop-out. That's why today we're going to dive into this passage in the book of Romans, which is a letter from a guy named Paul, who's an apostle, and he's writing to this church in Rome. Rome was at the very heart of the largest empire that has ever existed in history. Think like the New York City of its day. And this letter was written to people there who had just started following Jesus in the middle of Rome. Think about that. Put yourself in their shoes for a minute. They, these new believers, found themselves surrounded by people who were as far from being followers of Jesus as possible. In fact, Christianity was a new religion and it was spreading fast, and the leaders of Rome didn't see that growth as a good thing, which made the new Jesus followers a target, a major target. And if you're living as a targeted group in one of the most violent cities in the world at the time, chances are you're feeling like things might be a little bit unfair or unjust. You might feel like the Roman leaders were the enemy and you're just this innocent citizen. You were in the right. You should have freedom to get even or get mad or hold a grudge against them for how you're being mistreated, because if anyone's the problem there, it's them, not you. They had the power. They were doing the things that were unfair, which is why it's so crazy when Paul tells the Christians that they don't have a past to be angry or bitter. In fact, he takes the focus off of the Romans and puts them entirely on the Jesus followers and says, hey, this isn't about them. This is about you. Here's what he writes. You ready? But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. In other words, he says to them, maybe there's another way to look at this situation. We're no longer focused on making a case for what's fair or unfair, what's just or unjust when it comes to how the Christians were being treated. Paul's like, no. We're talking about God's love for you. And when you really understand who God is, it changes everything, even how you see forgiveness. See, whether you're a teenager in the 21st century or you're living back in first century Rome, the temptation is when we are wrong to get so caught up in what was done to us and what the other person deserves that we forget how often we get things wrong ourselves. And the temptation is to look at the person who wronged us and dismiss them, to move the focus from ourselves and our wrongs to that person and their wrongs. But Paul's saying, God looked at what we did and he didn't dismiss us. God loved us. And then God dismissed our sin. He didn't cancel us, he canceled our wrongs. God doesn't give up on us when we let him down. Now, let me take a quick second to make sure I'm being clear. We're by no means saying that people who treat you unfairly or abuse you or take advantage of you get a pass to keep on doing it. Don't hear that. If you're experiencing any kind of abuse, this right here is your encouragement and permission to have a conversation with a trusted adult about what's going on. That's the best thing that you can do. But wherever you're at, here's the thing. When we start to realize how God forgives our wrongs against him and chooses to love us no matter what, then we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean for how we see others who have hurt us, others who have treated us unfairly? Paul answers this question for us in his letter to the church of Colossae. He says, bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Now, bear with each other. Okay, what does that mean? We're not talking grizzly bears. That is the picture of carrying a weight of each other's imperfections together. It's this picture of patient commitment to seeing each other as human instead of villain, even when that's super challenging to do. Because of what God has done for us, which is extend love and forgiveness at all costs, we are called to do the same for others. To forgive as we were forgiven, with no strings attached, no conditions, nothing held back. The truth is, this can be hard for us to accept when it comes to how we see and treat others. And it can be just as difficult when it comes to how we see and treat ourselves. For some of us, we are much harder on ourselves than we are on others, right? And for us, Paul says the same exact thing. Jesus isn't stingy with his love or forgiveness for you. He offers you and I both love and forgiveness at the very same time. And if God has forgiven us, if God has made us right and sees us as we were meant to be, then we should see ourselves the exact same way. But here's what that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean we treat what was done to us or what we did as no big deal. Paul isn't downplaying the root problem or excusing the wrong we did or the wrong against us. He's saying whatever was done to you, however unfair that was real and that was a big deal, and it's okay if it hurts. But just as God looks at you and the mistakes you have made and sees you as more than the stuff you've done wrong, we need to see the people who have treated us unfairly as more than the thing they did wrong too. God set the standard here, and God's forgiveness tells us exactly how we should see ourselves and see others. You could say it this way. When it comes to forgiveness, we want to cancel the debt, not the person. Here's what I mean. Let's go to class real quick. You didn't know that that's where we were heading, and that I'm just gonna be your substitute art teacher today who doesn't actually know a lot about art. So don't judge it, all right? But here is Jay. Jay's got a big old head, but he's nice. We like Jay. Jay is a good guy. He's a great listener, and he's funny. He's got great jokes. He's an athlete. He likes soccer and football, but he's not so athletic. He also has a great anime collection. I would surprise you about Jay. And let's say he also has 2 sisters, so he's a brother. Hopefully you see that. And a stepmom, and they like to all hang out and go out to eat on the weekends. Loves eating food, just like me. And that's Jay. Those are a lot of great things about Jay, and he's a friend of yours, and you guys hang out, but Jay is also the kind of friend that sometimes gets on your nerves. And let's say last week, Jay really got on your nerves. Like, he just offended you time and time again. Like, my man, he came over to your house and he ate all of your hot Cheetos. I mean, every single one. And you love hot Cheetos. Those things are gone. And let's say that he left you hanging when he promised you a ride and just didn't show up. Sometimes he's a little unreliable. And not to mention, he owes you $12 and has for a long time, but you saw that Jay just bought himself a brand new phone case. And you're like, wait, but you owe me $12, Jay. And those things start adding up, right? These things, stealing your food, being a little unreliable, owing you money, all the other things that might be going on between you and Jay. You guys got some beef between you. And if you're honest, sometimes when this sort of thing happens, if you have a friend like Jay, what you want to do is you want to just cancel them entirely. You want to say, no, we're done. It's over. This relationship is not worth the effort anymore. You do you. I'm going to be over here doing me because I'm done with those things. And what we do when we're not careful is that when someone lets us down or offends us a few times in a row, we want to cancel them as an entire person. It feels kind of sweet to throw Jay away. But here's the thing. When you see Jay only as these things he's done to offend you, it seems fine to cancel him as an entire person. It feels kind of sweet to throw Jay away and be done with him. But what we can choose to do is choose to not just see Jay as the ways he's offended you. Not just as the moments when he has let you down. But we can choose to see Jay as a whole person, as the listener, as the funny guy, as someone who you love to go eat food with, as a brother and a son, as someone who's an athletic person. He loves anime. He's got all these interests. He's a unique person that God has created and God loves, and God has given him a purpose just like he's given you one. Jay's an imperfect person, but he's a person made in the image of God. And when you choose to see these things like God sees them, then you can embrace what it means to forgive Jay, to bring Jay back in, to see, yes, that he has let you down, yes, that he has offended you, but there is so much more to him and his story and who God has created him to be. That is what it looks like, to cancel the debt, but not the person. Meaning that we can call out wrong things as wrong, but we refuse to sum up a person as only that wrong thing that they did. And when we see them, we'll continue to see them, yes, as an imperfect human who messes up sometimes, and we'll decide to see them as God sees them and ourselves as God sees us, which is as people worthy of love, not just the sum of our wrongdoings. We do this because the offense was real, but it doesn't tell the whole story about the person who wronged us. Just like the things we have done, don't tell the whole story about who we are as people. God has always looked at us and seen us as more than the stuff we've done wrong, more than the sin that we have committed. God looks at us and sees someone to love. So God forgives. And now we are called to do the same exact thing for other people. So how do we do it? How do we cancel the debt, not the person? How do we stop being so hard on others and ourselves when they get it wrong or we do? How do we bear with one another, like Paul talks about, and stay focused on God's unstopping love? Well, it's a big question, but here's 3 places I would start. 1, identify where you need more compassion in your life. Maybe you're way harder on yourself than others, and forgiving yourself is much harder for you to do. Or maybe you need more compassion for others when they mess up. Determine which side you tend to lean towards and pay attention to that. Figure out the areas where you might need to show more compassion to others or yourself, and then work on practicing that over and over again. 2, identify who you are beating up. And let me make this clear. Figure out the person who you're thinking about over and over again, or who did something to you that you just have not let go out of your mind. Is it you? Is it your mom? Is it your third period teacher or your old football coach? Who are you mentally canceling or seeing as the wrong that they did? And what do you need to do to start seeing them or seeing yourself as God does, as someone worthy of all love and all forgiveness? And last, remember no one's perfect. Whether you're holding yourself or someone else to that standard of perfection, it is impossible to meet it and will only lead to disappointment and frustration in your life. People will let you down. You will let yourself down. We can't control that. But what we can control is how we handle ourselves when we're let down or hurt or disappointed. Can we choose to forgive others? Can we choose to forgive ourselves? Can we make the effort to seek forgiveness out from those we may have hurt? In other words, no one is going to get it right 100% of the time, but we can get really, really good at making it right when things go wrong. And we do that when we cancel the debt, but not the person. We do that when we remember that people are more than their mistakes, and there's more to the story than just their wrongdoings. We do that when we remember God hasn't held our wrongs against us, and we shouldn't either. Remember, speak up if there is hurt in your life. Forgiveness never, ever means letting someone abuse or hurt themselves, or you, or others. This right here might be your reminder that the next step in forgiveness could look like finding a trusted adult to talk to and seeking to help you for someone you know needs. For everybody, no matter what is going on in your life, forgiveness is a challenge. It does not come naturally, and it will probably never be easy. In fact, it'll probably always be easier to cancel a person than it is to cancel their wrong. But this idea of forgiveness is something we do because God did it for us first. As unnatural and difficult as it might feel, we don't give up on it because it was modeled first by God. You know, that's why we do groups, because as challenging as forgiveness is, it would be that much harder if we had to do this alone. But you have your group as a source of encouragement and strength, and to serve as a reminder that you aren't the only one trying to make forgiveness a reality in your life. Count on them, lean on them to help you as you figure out who needs to be forgiven and how to make that kind of forgiveness a reality in your life. Remember, forgiveness is the best thing you can do with the worst stuff that happens to you.